Second, me boutique mobile, all those things. They started with that, but they do not know that something led to all of these things. Someone made you see your culture as inferior. You want to go? So it is now that we need to begin to reconfigure our minds to embrace our culture and see it as a good thing. That way, we will restore back where we used to. Because I believe that in the past, there were great Igbo people born and raised in Lagos that later emerged Igbo leaders. But recently, Kedi Igbo leaders is from Lagos. Where are they? We need to have strong Igbo leaders from Lagos. I'm looking forward to it. So, Ibroni Ibobu Anyamuna Lagos, I want you to think home, go and contest for election, think for leadership position, bring that your idea, whatever you think you have, to the development of our Igbo. That is how we are going to develop. The advantage we have is that we have people with divergent belief and culture, which we have somehow acquired by the virtue of staying in different parts of the country and the world. So bringing it to develop our Igbo from different perspectives, it's going to make our Igbo better. I yield. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Eju ndị Igbo leaders nọ na Lagos. Faka na-azọgodo eze ndị Igbo na-abụla gbakọ.
Hey,
It's very shameful, bro.
yeah.
It's very shameful.
So before we open up for comments, yielding the mic to Nanyolugo, and then we have conversations around what Uche has said and what Nanyolugo would say. Yeah. So Nanyolugo, over to you.
Thank you very much. I came up on this page because of people like Nze, right? That cannot allow Lagos Igbo people drink water.
Wait, Nanyolugo, wait first. Wait, please. This is not fighting.
No, I'm not fighting.
Yes, it's not fight because
No, it's not fighting.
you've told him it's not fight. Please, yeah. Thank you very much. Thank you.
So I mean, I like what Anambra First Son said, and I always tell people that for you to understand behavior, you need to look at the environment. Igbo people are acephalous people. I mean, think about it. We don't give respect. See, I'll say it again. Just leave all those things. The people who have put skin in the game for Igbo people are diaspora Igbos. And I'll say it whether you guys want to accept it or not, are Lagos Igbos. Think about the kind of humiliation that India faced when they left the East in the 30s and 40s to go to Lagos to hustle. Think about Zik them that went to struggle for political power in those days. Do you know the kind of things they told them? And so when we think about this framework and environment of how people live, people at the end of the day will be the way you behave will be it's directly proportional to the way your environment treats you. And so some people enter into this coping mechanism and say, you know what? Let's all roll. Me, like someone like me now. I was not born in Lagos, I was born in Calabar.
Interesting.
Moved to Lagos in the 80s. Stayed in Lagos. But the only reason why, in a way, I can't move between these two frameworks is because I schooled in the East. When I schooled in the East is when I understood, see, we're all Igbo people, but your environment is, at the end of the day, makes you who you are. Only to na East, and we're any societal pressure. You're not waking up one day and someone is calling you Okoro. You're not. You're not dealing with that aggressiveness. Someone like Nze now, my guy, he's not waking up one day. If anybody insults Nze or about to Piawa, they don't fight. But if someone insults you and calls you Okoro in Lagos, you think twice because that's not your environment. Imana, Obito na Lagos, maybe grew up in Ajegunle. A lot of Igbo people grew up in Ajegunle. Go to AJ, right? If you grew up in Ajegunle, your worldview, the way you assimilate to things, you relate with people in your immediate environment. And funny thing is that in the Igbo and Lagos first stack satellite town. your worldview will be different from Igbos that grew up maybe in Ikoyi or VI, or even some parts of Sule, like where we grew up. Maka, the people you first meet are who? Like if you grew up in Ajegunle, I mean, like, will they go AJ? I mean, you guys said there were no Igbo meetings in Lagos, but that's not true. In the 80s and 90s, I went Igbo town, and I'm like in my village now, I went town meetings every first Sunday or so. You go to, and most of those town meetings were held in Ajegunle. So you drive to AJ, you sit down, and Obros won a meda town meeting, and when the Urobo, Isoko, Ijo, some other people like that. Everybody go sit down there. You go to them one primary school, they do your meeting. End of year, my party.
Now for your standard now.
You know,
Bazaar.
end of year, my party. So your worldview is going to be shaped by people you meet in your environment. Especially if you now one of these good schools, Corona, Fountain, Our Saviors. Your worldview is not going to be you want to be speaking Igbo. Your worldview is strictly you want to assimilate into the prevalent societal norms. You understand? That's what your worldview is going to be. And we have to look at events and how this thing happened. A lot of kids that were born in Lagos in the 70s, in the 80s especially, most of our parents were dealing with Civil War trauma. So the first thing you need to do, as let's say from when your parents moved to Lagos in the 80s, the first thing you need to do is to what? You need to identity suppression. You know, and so your Igbo identity is what you discuss in the house. He put outside, oh, Emeka, blah, yeah, you know, that's why if you grow up in Lagos, a lot more Igbo people were speaking Yoruba more than Igbo. In fact, I knew people who could speak Yoruba, but they hear Yoruba, but they couldn't speak Igbo. You know why? Igbo was not a language of communication. In the North, Igbo is a language of communication because whether we like it or not, the way a Northerner receives you speaking Igbo is different from the way someone in the South, in the West, in Lagos, will receive you speaking Igbo. That's the truth. I mean, that's how this conversation of you are tolerant, we are this one. Yes, everybody's tolerant up until you try to exert your rights. A Northerner will never open his mouth and say you don't speak Igbo. Nothing concern him. Because he's not wired that way. He's not wired that way to feel that someone speaking a language he doesn't understand is about to usurp them. And so a lot of people that grew up in Lagos grew up in this mindset, especially if your parents saw the war or fought the war. There was this subconscious trauma of having to deny identity. You know, so that's what a lot of people growing up in Lagos in the 80s and in the 90s had to deal with. And so when you say Lagos Igbo, you make it forward. If you want to blame money, blame their parents. Because a lot of them, if their parents had exposed them to what it means to be Igbo, they might not have this, they might not be too driven to assimilate into the prevailing culture of that time. So if the prevailing culture at that time was, man, I'm a Lagos boy, forget, your identity is being you are a Lagos boy. It doesn't matter whether your name is Emeka or your name is Shegu, you are a Lagos boy. And so your identity is Lagos. The only reason why we are bringing up this identity conversation is because of democracy. During the military time, this identity conversation, it was irrelevant. A lot of the musicians that came out from Ajegunle, from African China to Daddy Shokio, Daddy Fresh, all those guys, half of them were Igbo people. But to be very honest, I'm sure most of you don't know. Majek Fashek them. It was because, again, it was not relevant. You didn't need to tell anybody you were Igbo. It was irrelevant because in the environment you were grown up, you were either an AJ boy, a Festac boy, a Sule boy, or quote unquote a Lagos boy. In fact, in those days we were this boy na AJ boy, you don't get level, AJ boy. You see Korean boys don't come. So even if your name was whatever it was, your identity was not your ethnic group because Lagos is a melting point of identities, remember. 2, there's this hostility with speaking Igbo. And so you don't want to face it because your parents faced it, and so they want to protect you. And the only way they can protect you is okay, I can ask where you go. And so everything they did for you as a child growing up in the 80s and 90s was protection. I mean, It's now in 2025 you can come out and say, your parents didn't, why did you blah blah blah. All those things are, again, you are using the worldview of 2025 to judge people of the worldview of 1985. Oh, but you lost the war. You just came out of a war. And so the first thing you needed to do was to survive. It was not to carry and say, my children must speak Igbo. At that point in time, it's irrelevant. Highly irrelevant. It's the same argument we make about Western Igbos. And the same point we make. And that the biggest people that influenced Western Igbos were not people like us, but the biggest people that influenced Western Igbos were Benin's. Same argument we make about Southern Igbos. The biggest influence Southern Igbos had were not Igbo people in Rio or wherever. It was people in their environments. The people by the riverine area. And so, if you have come out after losing the war, I bet you that your identity will be the least of your worries. Survival will be your worry. And so, this is how, a lot of people coped during the 80s and 90s. However, that said, I tell people that great people move with time. And so, for every intersection of time and environment, you need to be able to understand what has happened. And so, I can give an excuse for kids that grew up in the 80s and 90s. And maybe, but I can't give an excuse for a kid growing up now in 2025. In 2025, who has the access of internet? Internet demystified a lot of things, even for me as an Igbo person. And so, when you have the access of internet, you can learn these things on your own. In the 80s, there was no internet. It's what they told you go with. In the matter of Igbo, you just move on. But now there's internet, so there's no excuse. And so, what I tell people now is, that's why I don't like getting involved in this Lagos Igbo, Eastern Igbo, because those conversations are reductive. They don't add any value to anybody. You can joke around it, but it's a reductive argument. There's no excuse for you not to be aware. I spent time reading too much history, and everything I do now, I go back to say, okay, this thing has happened before. What did we do? If we do the same thing we've done over time, we will have the same outcome. It's like that's Nigeria for you. Everything happening in Nigeria has happened before. There's nothing new. There's no new thing that you are going to tell anyone. If you study history, you will see that everything has happened. It's just like this argument you're having about Igbanke and Gịnị and all those things. It's funny because this argument has happened before. And at times, in the olden days, people took positions not because they wanted to, but because it gave them protection for a bit. But the biggest problem we have as a people is that when some of us entered into those agreements, we did not think about the outcome. So you might have signed an agreement in 1930s or 1940s, but you did not think how this agreement will affect you or limit you in 2025. You can also join this Lagos Igbo and Eastern Igbo thing, where because of the environment you grew up in, you had to adjust because the thing for you then was survival, not identity. The thing for Igbo people now is identity. No more survival because we have conquered survival. And so we need to appreciate how all these things played, why there's this schism between the Lagos Igbo and Eastern Igbo. It is not a schism because anyone is better. It is a schism because at those times, we as Igbo people, ethnically all Igbo, but we all face different surmounting problems. Igbo people in the East had their own issues. Igbo people outside of Lagos or in the West had their own issues. Igbo people in the North had their own issues. And at the end of the day, these issues define how they view their identity. And so if you can understand things from that worldview, you will see that this Lagos Igbo, Eastern Igbo is unnecessary. But like I said, it is not an excuse for anybody not to be identity conscious again. It's not an excuse. But I like to bring this background because we need to understand that, everybody will not reach this identity climax at the same time. And that there are people who are still fending for things, trying to define themselves, trying to identify themselves, trying to say, okay, what am I in this space I am in today? How relevant is my identity? What identity do I choose to push out? Just like if you ask some Western Igbos or Southern Igbos, okay, you do the 4 market days, you have an Igbo name, but you're not Igbo. Because to them, the Igbo identity does not play any role for them. It does not mean anything for them. It doesn't mean anything for them. You get? So they don't need it. However, the same people who don't need the Igbo identity in their environment, maybe in Rivers or in Delta, outside of Nigeria, they need the identity. Do you know why? Because it helps them. So if you come to the Igbo, like the Igbo church I go to, at times if I go to here, a lot of the new people there are from Rivers and Delta, the Igbos. But you know what? They need that Igbo identity here in America, in Canada, because it gives them a lever. In Lagos, in Rivers, it doesn't give them anything because minority politics is what they need to play. Because if they play majority politics, they will lose out. And so, if you can understand Nigeria, understand Nigerians, that at the end of the day, everybody's going to fight for self-interest. In USA, America, Canada, everybody's Igbo because that identity gives you leverage. In Rivers and Delta, you're not Igbo, you're a minority because minority politics gives you leverage. And that is the concept. That is how you relate with your immediate environment. If you can conceptualize these things, you're not going to get problems with anybody. Like for me now, once I hear people, I'm Delta, and I just ignore you because you are still stuck in your environment. You are still playing the survival game, because again, maybe there's something to gain from it. You are afraid that if you say you're Igbo, maybe those oil money you get or one thing you think you get, you lose out. So I mean, play the survival game. I don't have an issue with you. I just think that in that hierarchy of needs, you are still below trying to survive. So you don't know what you are. So that's my contribution. Thanks.
Yeah, Nanyolugo, thank you so much. I think Uche is out of here. I don't know, but thank you very much. So why I didn't want comments from Uche's after Uche's part was to put them together. And if you notice, Uche was able to give context from a political standpoint, and Nanyolugo gave from a historical standpoint, and you see how both of them connect. For me, I was able to just touch on them very little, but they expanded. And you can see how all of these things are all connected. You see how from a political side, there's a problem with identity. You can see how from the historical side, there's a problem with identity. But the part I don't really agree with is the part where you're not really laying blame per se and saying they are all irrelevant when people do these things or when these conversations happen. Unfortunately, it's relevant because of where we find ourselves. Maybe not completely relevant, maybe not 100% relevant, but in a way, it's still relevant because people still need to know. Some people don't know these things. And like you rightly said, environment matters. Your environment will influence you. Some people till today are still influenced by their environment because they don't know different. This space can change all of it. The mindset you're taking out of this kind of space changes it. The kind of conversations you have after today changes it. So we might say it's not relevant, but it's actually relevant. Before you joined, a lot of people have said a couple of things that has been quite revealing to everyone. And then you see so many perspectives to this topic. The part where you talked about parents holding the blame. A lot of people have said it already. But initially, when the first person said it, everybody was like, oh, no, don't blame the parents. We had to explain that when they say the parents are to blame, it doesn't mean that the parents are bad parents. You just need to understand the context. You get. So I'm opening the floor to not your own comments, but addition to, if you have comments or reactions to what Nanyolugo said, you can raise your hand. And because him and Uche, they said a lot. They expanded on this topic from different standpoints, and it's been really good. So if you have additions, subtractions, and bobo tibo, just raise your hand and then I put you on. Yeah. So yeah, I don't know. Afam, in the meantime, Afam, do you have anything to say? Make you know, Afam will come find trouble. Now be the thing. But yeah, Afam, if you have
I
anything,
don't
Afam
get
go find
it.
trouble. Afam and Nze said don't come out. Afam and Nze, and they
As
fight,
Nze ka m bịara ka mụ na ya pelee mana
Up
mana
go.
ọ
He go
bọchago
come
mana ọ
back.
pụgo. I don't get
Up
much
go.
to talk. I mean,
Okay.
Nanyelu Garuchi don't talk everything when you need talk, honestly.
Honestly,
Because
they expanded on it very well.
when
They did.
anytime when they talk this whole Igbo Lagos and something, I just for me I just war. Yeah, which I tell myself, yeah, if I have to, and that's all. Now waiting leftover of waiting work I record. So I don't
Honestly,
bother
man.
myself with it. Honestly, I just for me it's just comedy. That's the way I see it. I just look at it and I just laugh and keep it moving.
Yeah, it
For me,
can
it's
be
not that
comic,
deep.
but the problem with the comic is that it goes from comic to full-blown fight and insult. That's the problem.
Well, definitely for
That's
me,
why this case came on. That's why I
I
picked
don't
the topic.
really. I see when they para in the morning. I just look and they laugh. I
Yeah.
thought we don't talk this thing before private. Leave all these things. You understand? Yeah, we far but so I mean, like Nyelugu pointed out, if you grow for Lagos, you understand you would date different because that environment you see yourself. Unlike people we grow for America. That's why I see people Igbos in America. It be like see them they more
True.
aware, more aware with their Igbo-ness and all that compared to people with the Lagos, all these things in the environment na im influence. So for me, it's not really much of a big deal. But of course, some people they personalize them, and some people they
Thank you. People take it too far,
people
unnecessarily too
take it
far.
too
And
far. You understand?
now why
Nah,
now why that ukwa? I don't know if you remember that big we talk session with the chop ukwa. That conversation is like it's a perfect example where you
yeah, yeah,
supposed to educate someone, where you
yeah.
supposed to educate someone to say, oh, this is what it is and everything. You they insult, you they
And,
criticize.
and my
Yeah.
the only thing I want to point out is say my own the only thing I want to actually because because if you see where person the Michian or the talk within you feel like say Oputero, you understand, always try to correct with love. You have to every Igbo person, both Moken and Moke and everybody get ego. Ịghọtago o nwere ike esi gwa mmadụ okwu in the name of trying to correct somebody na imebi ife ịghọta so ichi ịgwa mmadụ okwu if you feel like oh onye a o kwuru ife adọrọ mma ịghọta ifu na ịma na onye Igbo correct that person with love you understand ọ bụ na DM ịba gwa onye a ife ichi egwu ya ịghọtago don't be bụrụ ekwu otu ite mmadụ in the name of correction so okpokpo oyibo ebe a and be very condescending that's not the way to go. So I just want to point out because a lot of people do it. So, and that's why I think sometimes, the thing could just boomerang, explode, turn to something else. You understand? It can't become full blown conversation for TL. So yeah.
Yeah. So I'm going to bring up some people to speak. Frankie, Urudia, Big Henry. They be me like say them fit chook me knife as they don't do my next sense. So starting with Frankie. Frankie, over to you. The floor is yours. Then Urudia speaks next. Frankie, now you they give thumbs down since so. Floor is yours.
Good evening, everybody. Ogechukwu, my brother, Owerokwa Mochi. Yeah, no, don't misunderstand me, please, brother.
Oh no.
I need Nebiareba. I believe I need Nebiareba no ka I mutaife. I could remember where afam na-ekene gị Anambra first son ise ekenechara m ụnụ ama m mgbe all these Igbo space conversation bidotara mgbe ka unu si wee bido na ihe niile it was kind of educative program then so ka m si wee kwuo Ogechukwu don't misunderstand me mgbe m batara ebe a izizi o nwere ka the conversation si wee na-aga mgbe anwa so that was the reason why o ji wee dịka na eme thumbs down although some opinions that were said by some other peoples nkwelu na ya enyekwara m fa thumbs up mmadụ dịka Ọfịa Fụlagụfa mgbe ọ kọletịrị mpafa then ana m ewelukwa ekene na-enye Nnanyelugo afa mma the way Fasi were summarize the whole thing, both from the point Fasi were both the historical and the political aspect of it, where the whole thing si wee bido. So wee bụrụ ya then ihe ọzọ m chọrọ ikwu biko na ụmụnne anyị niile bụ ofu Igbo bụ ofu ma itolu na north ma itolu na abroad ma itolu anyị niile bụ ofu enwere ndị na-ekwu pressure the pressure is everywhere. Some of us so amụrụ anyị n'ala Igbo na East ụfọdụ tokatara ụfọdụ n'ime anyị pụbakwa na jebe North so we saw all these things ịghọtalụ. So ka ọ ghara ịbụ onye mee ọfụ na onye nwa ka ọ dịka nwanne m nwoke mpa ewe n'iwe. There was a part you will kick me out from the space. I know you allowed your emotion took over you. So you allow your emotion take over you. So sometimes when we come in a public space like this, and there was a place, there was a party also. You see, you are triggered and you started using some words like in ezuzu n'ihe ndị ọzọ. Nke bụ eziokwu, enwere ike aghọtara m ebe isi abịa, mana sometimes ka anyị na-control tụkwanụ onwe anyị. I don't know if it was a slip of tongue or an intentional comment. I don't know. But nke bụ eziokwu bụ na ndị kwuru okwu unu ekwutesigo ihe niile. Mmadụ dịka Ike Pentikọst fa Anambra First Son, Nnanyelugo fa Afamva, ọ bịazie dịka na ikpeazụ anụnwa ka the conversation bịa tọbazie ihe bụ ụtọ, because I believe this kind of conversation wụ ihe ọ ga-awa anyị bịa anyị amụta ihe wee nawa, anyị bịa na ya anyị ewere one or two wee naba n'ụlọ, ịghọtara. Mana nke bụ eziokwu na atana m na nna atụ aka na mgbe ihe niile bidoro ịga initially. That was because ọwụrụ ihe m mere expect ka mfụba. And also let's try to manage our time, because ama mma mgbe ihe anụwa bidoro, mgbe the conversation na-abịa dizie ka onwelu ndị nwe ya nke iche, ịghọtalụ. Ofu ndị ahụ kwutakwa fa repeat, ofu ndị ahụ ọ dịzie ka fanwa bịara ịkpa nkata, ndị ọzọ bịara inene. Everybody has something to contribute, you know. So ka amalụ ga-esi manage time na ife ndị a na-ekwuga na ka esi ekwu okwu. Sometimes ị nwekwa ike inwe good point to give, but the way you present it eme ihe niile ọ dị bad, and when people start reacting towards the stuff, you might get triggered. So ka anyị neluo na ife ndị a anya nọọ ife ya abala anyị niile. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Frankie. Thank you for. I like the fact that you didn't touch on the actual topic. You just talked about the observation of everything happening, and everybody takes their own, in quotes, sub. So thank you for that. I really appreciate. Big Henry, yeah, as discussed after you speak. So over to you. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Can everyone hear me?
Yeah, we can. We can hear you clearly.
Because I'm a son, so I might stutter in speech, but I will say all I can say. Now, briefly, Owe Hencho, Onyawala Waka. I'm in Lagos, okay? From the educational sector to the social lifestyle, we had to
Hello.
There was no social activities back then. Growing up, we didn't have things to look forward to, unlike those that were raised in the East. Now, so even in our schools, we were not taught Igbos. We were taught English, Yoruba, and Hausa, and even in the history book, in the schools that we went to. Okay, so for every Igbo born in Lagos that chose to identify as an Igbo person, not just by name, but by act, it is a willful thing. It is not something that we do conveniently. It is very much easy for you to do it if you were born in the East, because you had so many Igbo things to learn from, to pick from. Okay, you get how you go to react for Lagos being an Igbo person. They will change that for you. You understand? So we had to. It is not easy for us. And see, Igbo, I had to learn it. I had to. I was born in Lagos, raised in Lagos, but I had to learn Igbo. And I would say this: Igbos born in the East do not give us grace. They are not gracious. They are not. I wanna mgbe m bido na-azụ ahịa akwa n'ime Mandelas, that the first set of people I came in contact with, they were hostile to me. I would never have that urge or that zeal to fully inculcate myself into things that concern Igbos, though I'm an Igbo person. It is not fair. Lagos Igbo this, Lagos Igbo that, Lagos Igbo this, Lagos Igbo that. Odurama, it is not. I'm a if I na Funima here. We know what we see on a daily basis, what we go through. Onye bịa nnọọ sị na Igbos in Lagos underrate those or look down on those in the East. It is see, I would have preferred to be born in the East than to be born in Lagos. We were persecuted, our voice was drowned. You know, if you react anyhow for area, even in your streets, small thing there, don't tell you say, Omoina, Yibo ni, Mawubo boye shebi Yibo. Anybody where they speak Yoruba here go understand it what I mean. It's a derogatory term. The only set of Igbos that have stood firm from the onset have been those that were born in the north. My uncle was born in the north. Every part of my family members were born in the north. Because the Hausas or the Fulanis or the Northerners did not see them as threats when it comes to speaking your language or having their social events. But here in the Southwest, it is not the same. We had to endure, we had to seek refuge in ourselves. That is why I will forever be in debt to favor that is Mpa and his crew for what they are doing with the Lagos Igbo hangout and all of that. This thing over the years has been our own melting point. Our own melting point. There has never been anything like this before. You can blame us all you want. He was born in Lagos all you want, but everyone is observing Ohaneze, Ndi Igbo, Lagos branch of their duties. What orientation program, what efforts have they done into bringing every it was born in Lagos into one canopy? Whatever we do, whatever we try to do, it is met with hostility. In Lagos, as an Igbo born in Lagos, I was born in Lagos. I speak, I write Yoruba, the Yoruba language. Now, when I try to associate with my own people, thereby the only thing they tell is that I'm on Lagos. It hurts, but now who we won't complain give. It is very much convenient to understand. But we where they born for Lagos, they don't born you where. They don't born you where. That you want to go. Who you want go talk meet. So Bikono, enough is enough. We all need to come together and make this work. Because man, no life now. Me, I go talk as my mind do. This Igbo hangout is a very good thing, yes, and all of that. But please, this banter and this thing that sometimes it does not seem like banter. You get how you go banter person reach. If the person see you now on site to Bikono, I yield the mic.
Nah, Olube na nke on side, biko.
No, just
Kick you
joke.
one side, biko.
I'm sure it's a
No,
joke. So,
go down.
yeah. So Uzo, everything you said valid, but the part where you talked about social activities growing up for Igbo people, maybe it's different for so many other people. But for me, we had social activities, and one of the biggest social activity we had then was bazaar. I said it earlier. Maybe you had not joined then. At the end of they still do it till today. Till today, this thing started probably in the 80s. Our town they still do it till today. Every from the east, he comes to Lagos, celebrates Mass, and then they do bazaar. If you've not seen any town person in Lagos for the year, come to bazaar. You will see them. You get. You're going to see them. It was our biggest social activity. Randomly, they do some other stuffs. Your town union is doing end of the year and all of that. You meet, but for our own side, we do. I don't know if people from other towns if they do it, but we used to do it then. And I think Eluka talked about something similar. Town unions. I don't know if people still go. You get. I know some parents don't go. Again, back to the parents. Some parents do not go. So if you're in the house with your mom and your dad know they go let me use my town as an example. Your dad is not going to Aglaze Improvement Union meeting. You know they go. If it's a progressive union, you know they go. So if he's not going for those two, nothing stops him from going. No, on Sunday he's at home, but he doesn't go. And then how do you expect him to take other things serious? I mean, for some people, they might still take the whole culture thing serious, but if you're not integrating yourself with your own environment within your community, it's already a problem. You get? It's already a problem. And it starts from the top, and the top there is parents. So before we jump in and crucify children and all, start from the top. And like Eluka also said, in 2025, you have no reason to say you don't know. The internet has made things easier. Even Twitter makes it easy. There are certain accounts you follow that you would learn. You follow Eluka today, he's always talking about Igbo history. You follow Nze. The only problem with Nze is that his own comes with fights, but he talks about Igbo history. There are certain accounts you follow, you're going to learn about Igbo history and culture. So in 2025, you actually don't have a reason to say you don't know. So that's why I said, when you're done with the parents saying, okay, the parents didn't do this, they didn't do that, you as a person, it gets to a certain age that you need to take responsibility on your own. And I did mention that nothing stops you from carrying your bag to say, I'm going to the East this year for December. So if your parents don't travel, it doesn't mean you cannot travel. You can take your bag and tell your guy, oh, mommy, we go one place for weekend. 1 week, you're out of Lagos with your guys. 1 December, carry your bag and go to the East. Go home. Go and stay there for 1 week. You will not die. Believe me. I swear to God, you're not going to die. 1 week. Go on the 27th, leave on the 5th. If you want to spend 2, fine. But go home. It starts from there. It doesn't matter if you can speak the language or not. Go. If you have relatives back home, go there and sit down with them. Learn. But if you're not able to take all this initiative, you're not able to stand up and do these things, and you want to always lay blame and say, this one is that one is this one. They will use jazz and kill us. They used to kill people in my village. My uncles are wicked. I hear you. But go home. Find a way and go home. If you don't, you're going to run circles around yourself, and we're still going to be having this conversation. You're going to get married one day. Your kids will be inside the same circle. I'm sorry to say. But that's what is going to happen. They'll be in the same circle, and you're going to have this conversation again. And they're going to ask your kids the same question. What will your kids say? Oh, my dad wasn't really into it. It starts from your grandparents, got into your dad, now it's going to you. So what is going to one? That's how a generation is going down and down and down the slope. Nobody's going to change it for them. So as much as we want to blame the environment, you want to blame the environment, you want to blame the political side, and all. In the end, you have your own responsibility to yourself to say, okay, if all of these things have happened, politically, this is what the climate is for Igbos. Environmentally, this is what it is. What am I doing on my own to change it? Again, what Empire is doing. there are still some people here that would say they are not going for that kind of thing. Legit. There are still people that will still say, I know they go a beg, I know they mix up with those kind of thing. But those same people will come out and tell you you are fighting Lagos Igbo and Igbo, Eastern Igbo and everything. Ngwa, go and mix up. You will not. So let's leave the whole back and forth and all the fights. What are the one question I'm asking? What are you as a person? What are you doing on your own part to like correct all of these things individually on your own and collectively as a group? What are you doing to fix it? How are you fixing it on your own? Henry, you talked about Ohaneze. Very valid. Those ones are just nonsense people. I'm sorry to say. In fact, I'm not sorry to say it. They are complete nonsense. They've not done anything. They've not done anything to make all of these things easy for everyone. All they do is play the nonsense politics at it, of which they are not even playing the politics well. But they are not even solving any problem. When you break it down, you have Ohaneze at the national level, you have it at the state level. How are you breaking it down to other smaller levels that involves other people? They are not doing it. Because if Ohaneze was a serious organization or no, we would have all of these social gatherings one way or the other across the country, across different states. But it doesn't happen. It has to be people on their own that takes up that mantle on their head to say, this is what we want to do. That's why, again, back to what Mpa is doing. Very important. So I'm yielding the mic now to Urodia. So the mic is to you now. You've been on the queue for a while. I'm giving you the mic now to speak. And then we'll head back to other people on the list. Yeah.
Yeah, can you hear me? Yeah, okay. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. We can hear you.
Yeah, okay. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. We can hear you
Okay,
clearly.
nice. Okay, now, right?
Would they hear you?
Yeah, is it clear now? Can you hear me?
Penny, we can hear you. Go ahead and speak. We can hear you loud
All
and
right,
clear. We
Penny, we
can hear
can
you.
hear you. Go on, go on. Continue with
all
you.
right,
They hear
all
you.
right, all right. One day. Yeah, okay. I greet you one day. Afam, Anamekinokwa, Mpa. I hear you. So, my own addition to what everyone has said, I want to come from a perspective, but before that, I agree with what Nnayelugo and Uche had said earlier. But I don't want to say from a perspective. So I was born in the north. I was born in Zaria, Kaduna State, and then I was born. I was raised there before I went about my life. So my own experience is I started speaking Hausa and Igbo at the same time when I was 6 because my parents are traders. So Imago, when we go home to the village during Xmas, I noticed the pattern because we have cousins. I come from a very large family, and we had that, a very large. We had families from different parts of the world in America, UK, Calabar, Lagos. So in Mago, another village. Now, just my cousins see like Yedeka, maybe Abuja, Calabar. and other places na anata. Even this obodo Igbo na anatakwa, but the ones known na Lagos adịrị alata. And this thing Emeka from the 90s, but about 2000s. Imago. So I noticed the pattern and I started growing up with it. I was like, okay, maybe there's something about Lagos. I don't know. They don't come back and stuff like that. So Imago, so they started having this. I've forgotten. There's this popular thing they always say about Lagos people, and all of that. And it became very, very popular that they don't come back. So moving from that, I think that we all have roots. Ndibu, we have roots. You're just like Yoruba, everybody has their roots. So I really don't buy with the thing where somebody saying that because only America has more access to speak Igbo language, or why the person in Lagos. I really do not buy with that because from my own experience, I could speak the language. Everybody could speak the language. My cousins from everywhere could speak that. But in fact, I got to know my cousins in Lagos when I became a teenager. I didn't know them; they were never coming back home. So I think that's also one of the problems. Where that's one of the roots of the problems, because I feel like there was a mentality of the parents then there. They don't come back home. They don't do anything, and you're in Nigeria. Why the others come back home? I didn't. My parents spoke Igbo to me, but the best or the best connection I had with Igbo was coming back to the village very frequently. Every year, December, we go home. Sometimes after 2 years. So I think the problem is from the roots. So yes, it is a problem already. It is a problem already that some people cannot speak Igbo. Some people are like Eloka was saying. The other guy was saying that it doesn't entertain those kind of things. Yes, but I feel like now that we are in the conscious of our environment and what is going on. So more and encourage. I'm encouraging everybody that we should come back often to our villages. If you have kids, bring them back. Let them meet with their brothers, the people that live in the village. The core villagers there. Let them interact with them, learn about languages, and stuff like that. It also just like the conversation earlier about a scarf. Mgbe anyị nọ n'ugwu Hausa, ya na-akpọ that thing wụ gele. Mgbe m bịazi Lagos ka m fụzi na ndị Lagos na-akpọzikwa ya gele. Na-asị how many, so I have to, gele is not even a Yoruba term. It's a Hausa, and it is obere onye ji malụ ndị ugwu, onye ji mara anyị, and ọ ịchafụ ịmago. So these are the misinformation, around, that needs to be, So I feel like in the Madonna village more often. These things get another. When people go home. And yes, I'm an anyway the spoils of the world, political that spoils everything here. But I feel like people should travel more, go to the village often. It comes with its own blessings. You will definitely learn. There's no time I go to the village that I don't learn something, because I'm very deep rooted into culture. I like to learn things, food, languages. You learn. There are old people, there are locals that can teach you and all that. So from there, you get to be very grounded with your culture and your surrounding. So my own submission, Bonabiko, we should go back to our roots. We should always start with our roots. That's the most important thing. Oborokwa, to say you want to be in Lagos, you want to be in Germany. No, you can be anywhere, but always go back to that place. That place where you were born, that place where your ancestry. Imago. Always go there, know what they are doing there. When your cousins are doing some kind of gatherings or whatever, get involved in the process. From there, you get to learn, different Igbo rights and all of that. You understand? So that way, we'll curb all these Lagos Igbo, because our generation will have the capacity to actually stop it. To actually say there was a time where there was something like a Lagos Igbo, but now it's no more, because we came together and started tapping to our roots. Our children can speak Igbo. you know, and like that. Oh, well, Iana, maybe with your Igbo accent. When I see you are too Igbotic, you are too the only Igbo Kwayana like that, you know. That is what probably her environment has cost her, you know. And Imago Lagos Nabia with in the Lagos Nabia with this classism. Fana de me, you know, Fana de feel na maybe na fadi more superior. Even then, one of my cousins no call then by the Ubele. Fana like if form na Imago anywa sukugwa usa. Ndị si America, ndị si ebe a amara ife a na-eme n'ọfọ ma ife a na-eme, you know. So we need to actually
to the conversation. Yeah, so thank God for this space. Uche, back to you. You're back. So it feels like you want to say something. Yeah, I don't know if you have, based on what a lot of people have said, I'll give the mic back to you. And then we have Ifena Okeke, we have Mike Jet, and then Onyanwelego. So three of you will be next after Uche. So Uche, back to you.
Yeah. So I actually wanted to emphasize on the fact that some of us who have experienced both ends, especially living in Lagos and coming back to Southeast, and I can tell you, that I remember the day I was quite younger, so I was asking my uncle this question. So I was asking him, why is it that upon all these people that are wearing robes and they are obviously lecturers, why is it that they are erotic? I asked my uncle. They are educated. They are supposed. So I was still out of from secondary school, you know. So, but I already know that they were sounding erotic, and I was asking my uncle, why is it that they are erotic? I was such a very, you know, inquisitive person, and he looked at me. He said, when somebody from the north they speak like a northerner. When somebody from Britain they speak from Britain. They speak like a British person. Somewhere where somebody from Igbo, no matter how educated, because I was thinking, growing up, especially from Lagos point of view, I was thinking that people who speak in the Igbotic tone are not educated. Do you understand? So that was me, you know, believing from a Lagosian perspective that anybody that speaks Igbo, speaks English with that tone might probably not be educated. But it's not true. So what that means is that what that tells me is that not everybody has my uncle or has the information to understand the difference. Because when I hear people speak English and they speak it from their tone, or from their accent, you don't go and judge the person based of that. There are people who are very educated, but they may not be fluent with language. There are people who are very good in language. I know someone who didn't even go to finish secondary school, but he speaks English effortlessly. And it is not because he's quite brilliant. No, it's just that he happens to be good with language. And this person understands other languages. Nwa Boyai in Lagos, he speaks English, he speaks Yoruba, he speaks Hausa, he speaks Fufude, he speaks all manner of languages. And they both go to the school just three. I'm telling you. So on has Yoruba like this, Ichema. So these are the things that you learn when you get exposed to some of these activities. And another thing, like somebody said earlier, culture is very important. Having lived in Lagos all your life and you meet somebody or you go to the east, there are so many things that are going to be different for you. The way of life is going to be different. The way people do things and say things is going to be different. So you do not use your own to judge them harshly and say that these people are doing something totally backward or wrong. Could probably be because that's how it is done there. And this whole naming is very important because it's as recent as 2020 that I started hearing of it. Despite the fact I live in Lagos, like my immediate family of people that I've lived with, my mom, my auntie, everybody calls it a chaff. If you go to the village, yani a chaff. We never heard anything like gele.
Oh yeah.
Now, people are calling it gele, 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 gele. Like, what is gele? And sometimes you see that this is actually what social media can cause. The same goes to food. You see somebody calling um kedifana ofaku, sige banga soup, kinko banga soup. Like I used to think they are different. Or asigi white soup instead of ofe and sala. Like when they say this thing, you think they are actually different. And most of our people, let me tell you, our people are also guilty of this. Sometimes they do these things ignorantly, or they just want to tell you that they are not from here. I'm telling you, I remember back in Unizik, and when one
I'm
guy,
I'm angry with this ignorance.
that guy, so and when one guy, this guy, he goes around in the school wearing lasgidi. He goes around the school wearing lasgidi. I will never forget this guy. So I thought this guy. Just like Nanyelugwe rightly explained, and he gave a very better insight on that. I didn't grow up around that side he mentioned, so I understand that there are places you live in Lagos or you grew up in Lagos, you will be much more accustomed to the environment. There are places you grew up, you will be so like it will be like you grew up in somewhere in Owani or in Oka, places like Agor Palace or places like Festa Kamu Dofi, those places, and Alaba International, some part of Surulere, and Coca, Eba and Deba Enosi. Leba and when the Abasagi na Yoruba, you may not even learn how to speak Wa Mayafaze
It's not a
Ijelu.
case of me.
You
You
not
will
learn
not.
how to speak those.
It is not a case of me.
Yeah.
I was
So
staying in
it
Ago.
depends on.
You will not at all. The moment you enter
Yeah,
Keke,
but if you grow up in
Asebe,
Agege,
yes,
Mushi,
it's going to be different.
grow up around maybe AJ City and all those places, is definitely going to learn Yoruba. In fact,
Thank
the
you.
culture, not just the language. You are
Thank
going
you.
to be integrated into the society that you start behaving like them. And you know, in Lagos, Lagos, and when our a fly this, I see only music on Yoruba, right? Iga from the bani, name kukanda buru, ne kuona gije, everything on name kandi alaye, try to be part of the people or ndobodo, name kandobodo. And the reason is because they grow up in a place where that is the lifestyle. If you are not doing that, then you are outside the equation. Or it takes extra effort from your parents to make you special or distant from your environment. It takes extra effort, just like what my parents did. My parents refused a lot of things. They refused a lot of things, and that's why. And so many parents go as far as even sending their kids back to the east. If you notice, when they comes back to east, usually an eye opening. You got to go because they grew up seeing east as a village from the prison of every other person that calls east village or a backward place. So by the time they come to the east, they don't. Some of them don't go back. If you go to Ifite, for example, in Okaiba now, plenty people where get business where they operate here in Ifite. They are Lagosians. Many guys where they this if they occur, they do business, they do things, they are Lagosians, they were born and raised in Lagos. I'm sure okay to your life. If you had found something in a member, you wouldn't go
You
back
know
to
now, you
Lagos.
don't get this
So
conversation tired. You know, we had it.
so
I used to
so the
tell you
thing
that the
is
moment I see something good, I'd have left Lagos. But my job was not
even
going to pay me like that
Harry,
then.
you all know. So many people who actually came down from Lagos tried to see if they can get something going. Some of them are doing, some of them left, went back to Lagos and all of that. So the point is that by the time they come back to the east and finished, their school, they will now realize that Obro Ifafana Afubu before, Obro Kafasa Afubi, because I'm sure that Onye Gochara University for 4 years or 5 years course in any of the Eastern University. After that, you will have a change of mind, you will have a change of mindset. Obro Kisa Afubi before Kigane Snaf. Manamba Haga Batacha year one and I'm watching Imago. And hey, man, I'm sure Onyelife, you did the same thing. Muna year one. Mana, it is stress. I won't tag if it.
No, funny. See, so Uche, for me, for me, I would come out
Yeah.
and it's very different for me. You get. I knew the kind of mindset I had from the beginning. I came in with that mindset. So most of all those, the mindset change, it wasn't that thing for me. You get. I was already into the whole stuff before university.
Bro, I was like that. I'm not gonna lie. When I came here,
Nah,
like man, I was all of
no,
this. I was like
no,
that.
no.
I
I
was
was.
like
I mean,
that. I
we're
had
already
to.
coming every 2 years. Then the ship us enter. Then random travels you get. So you don't already they come east. So by the time they were doing, you will go to Unizik and everything. We're like, okay, we got there and we got. I got used to everything very fast. You get very 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 fast. So it wasn't anything new to me. Before Unizik, there was one time me and my brothers traveled alone to the east. So before university time, I was already for someone who grew up in Lagos, I was already like used to the whole Eastern thing. So coming to Unizik was very, very, very easy for me. I didn't choose Unizik. My mom was like, Emeka went to Unizik. Where do you want to go to Kano for what? Just carry yourself. And I was like, okay. And I went to Unizik and I got there and I was very comfortable there. After Unizik, I stayed for about 2 years, even after service. Before I was like, okay, you know what? I have to leave because work no day. I wasn't really into business and all. I had my own career path and it was not going to pay me in Oka. I had to leave. But even in Lagos, standard is that if I had gotten something that would pay me well, I would have left. I would have actually left Lagos. The only thing that would bring me to Lagos is to visit family, friends, and then go back to the east. I was working in Lagos, but in the full calendar year, Uche, with the jam now. In a full calendar year, you see me in the east at least 2, 3 times before Christmas. I would
East and vie for political position. I need them to be involved in political activities. I need them to be part of
That
the system
Uche, that's
because
that's
that
too
to
far. Uche, chill.
Uche
That's
like
too far.
your
No,
Uche.
that's too far. I think the
Uche like
conversation
your
should be
Wanda. One of the Lagos to be as
no,
all.
no,
Yeah,
yeah, exactly. You
hey.
can't just come out like that and look for. That
Anybody
Uzi,
that
wait.
grew up in Lagos coming to East to run for any election, one quadonify Eli wo.
Yeah.
Does not
So
make sense.
Nze, hold on first. After I'm just the lap. The conversation should be: what are we doing in these locations? Those that are based in Lagos, what are they doing to identify? Those that are based in Ibadan,
okay.
what are they
Let
doing?
me tell you.
That's the
Let
conversation
me
now.
tell you.
Going as far as saying political
let me
posts,
tell
you're
you.
taking the conversation too far.
No,
Okay.
let me tell you something. In 2020,
Mm-hmm.
even though the person I block will go because sometimes we disagreement online, or same that
I
we
be
have. You got to go. So things like that is very important. Why I'm saying this is that I came across a young man. If this guy, this man is an honorable representing a constituency. They don't try. What about Ohanese leadership? What about other type of leadership? Or it mustn't be political. It could be social organizations. You got to look at what Favor is doing. That's one thing I like so much. I want this to continue so that we can have more people who can become leaders. Leading Igbo nation, born and raised in Lagos, with that mindset of Lagos mindset or whatever mindset that is quite unique. You got to go because the idea of Igbo is a global. The world is our village, is our place. That is the idea of Igbo. We are not confined to the southeast. We are not. We are a global citizen. We are everywhere. But we have to be mindful of our identity going anywhere we are going to. That is the ideology of an Igbo person. So we are not going to shrink ourselves for anybody. It will never happen. Not don't have interest for now. So, but the point is,
Something. Finna. Okay. Then Chudi, then Chi. People tend to tackle women more on this topic than the
fun
guys.
are very mindless when they are doing this thing. Their own is
Yes.
too much. They mindless
Thank
when they
you.
do this
They
thing.
tackle the women more. So I would expect that they actually speak up here. I think we've noticed it when this thing comes up about Igbos that don't Lagos Igbos and the likes. They tend to
That was
target
why I
the women
pointed it
more.
out.
Yeah,
You
they
understand?
tend to
I can't
target the
do
women
it.
more
Yeah, but
because they know say if they tackle guy go knock them back immediately. But when they do it to ladies, they would not really expect a lady to push back, just few. So please, I would expect ladies to actually speak up. As much as so far we've been hearing historical, political context to everything. It would be nice to hear experiences from different backgrounds. A couple of people who grew up in the north have talked about this, and it was nice. Eluka came. He grew up all this while. I was even thinking Eluka grew up in Lagos. I didn't know he grew up in Calabar. Who knows? Yeah. Some people did not even know I grew up in Lagos. So it would be nice to hear people's experiences, people that have gone through this and how they were able to solve these problems on their own or through the help of someone. Yeah. So Ifena, over to you. Then Chike, the guy that was there earlier has disappeared. So Ifena to you, Chike, Noni, not yet. I'll give this to Renzi as the third person. So Ifena, over to you now. Chike, put your hands down. After Ivana, you speak. Thank you.
Dalono, good evening, everybody. In
Good
Anian
evening.
Neku.
Loud and clear.
Okay, Dalon. I'm making no yaw na space here. I no go member for some time. So can get good into Nia Neku. Nia Neku them. So continue on n'okwu. Mana asụtụ ụfọdụ n'oyibo so ụfọdụ n'Igbo maka aghọta m na onwe ndị na-ebe a na-anara aghọtachi Igbo ọfụma.
Carry on.
Nsogbu. Because the first thing I want to talk about is the topic. I'm not the topic. I need the area. The topic doesn't already.
There's a reason because it is me. Leave it. That's how we started. Lagos Igbo, Eastern Igbo. Gịnị so
Our topic with the root cause now.
Yes, exactly. That's why you have it there. Leave it alone. That's how it
It's a matter. Okay, let me focus on some of the important issues I have here.
Yeah.
The first thing I want to talk about is the fact that culture, by its very nature, is an identity, is not a situation. We need to understand that. Being an Igbo man, Hausa man, Yoruba man, whatever culture you identify with is an identity. It defines you. It's not something you decide to relate with or you decide to associate yourself with because of the situation you are in. If you are born as an Igbo man, whether you are in China, whether you are in Kafanchan, whether you are in Lagos, or whether you are in the East, that is your identity, first of all. And it is your duty at that point to reflect it, to carry it, to manifest it. So I find it very difficult when we say, or find it very difficult to accept it when we say And because someone was not born in the Igbo, you decide to associate or maybe relate with another culture. Now, that is not to say that I don't understand the plight of people that were born outside the Southeast. I really do. There's something that privilege does to us. It blinds us. Those of us that were born in the East, we have the privilege of being among people that speak Igbo every single day. So it will not be an issue to say everybody should speak Igbo. You are already blinded by that privilege. But for people born outside the East, maybe in the North, they did not have that privilege. So I really understand it when people say that because they were not born within an Igbo situation, they don't know how to speak Igbo. I understand that. But then, we must also make it important to say that there is a distinction between fault and responsibility. Something may not be your fault, but it is now your responsibility to fix it. Let me give you an example. If you wake up in the morning and you see a newborn baby, a 2-year-old baby, or maybe say a day-old baby at your door crying, you don't know who put the baby there. You just woke up and you saw a baby at your doorstep. You've been shouting all the neighborhood. Nobody agrees that it's their baby. It's not your fault. You just woke up there and you saw the baby. But whose responsibility now? Are you going to say, because I'm not the one who put the baby there, I'm not going to take care of the baby, or I'm not going to find a motherless baby home, or I'm just going to abandon the baby there? No, no reasonable human being will do that. So it may not be your fault, but it is now your responsibility to fix it. So if for reasons of circumstances or accidents of where you were born, you do not understand the Igbo culture or you do not understand the Igbo language, I understand that. That's perfectly understandable. But then there is now a responsibility on you to fix. And how do you do that? You now have to make conscious effort to associate with Igbo people, attend this Igbo hangout more organized now, Okwa June self, on a more organized, buy tickets, follow Igbo history and facts. The second thing I want to talk about is the fact that there is a point in life where ignorance becomes malicious, honestly. O nwere ka ife ya esiru karịa na ndụ a mmadụ o nwere oge gị yeru na ndụ a esi onye a amaghị ihe at this age na o nwekwe ka ọ dị. There's a point in life where ignorance becomes malicious because there is no other possible explanation for your being ignorant of that fact except a deliberate decision to be ignorant. O nwere oge ọ ya eru ịma na asị na kedu ka anyị si ekwudo ife anụnwa okeke nwaanyị dị ntị nne m asị m na okenye na-amachakwa ụmụ agwa ofe. O nwere ogige ọ ya eru na ndụ a ma onwezi ihe ya na-ajụ gị ka ezi ihe tinye gị n'ọnọdụ a ihe a na-ajụ gị so ruo n'ogugo anyị mmadụ ihe a. There are some basic things about the Igbo culture that we should make conscious effort to learn, we should make conscious effort to be aware of, despite whatever have been our situation, despite where we were born, the situation, whether our parents taught us or not. There are just some basic things that we cannot afford to be ignorant of about the Igbo culture, notwithstanding any circumstances behind your story. Now, so to summarize everything I'm just trying to say here, because actually ikwu okwu a for too long, ama m na ndị mmadụ na-ebe achọ ikwu okwu ka nkụ. Ihe m metinye n'okwu ahụ ka anyị gbanụ mbọ ebe ọbụla anyị nọ, ma onye nọ n'ugwu Awụsa, ị nọ n'obodo oyibo, ị nọ na Naịjirịa, ọ bụrụ ha agha na iwu onye Igbo, anyị Igbo nwaanyị, ebe ọbụla ị nọ, oke na ọrụ dịrị gị ịgba mbọ na-egosipụta ihe gbasara ndị Igbo ebe ahụ ị nọ. Until the lions our story by ourselves. I will give the world the narrative about the Igbo culture. Honestly, there are a lot of things about the Igbo culture that has been said that are not true. A lot of stereotypes flying around up and down. But what are the Igbos doing about debunking these stereotypes? Absolutely nothing. We all the business actually go. Skit makers only focus on how propagate the Igbo culture. I can just count a few. So it is our duty to use this digital aid to change some of the false narratives that have been propagated against the Igbo culture. And how do we do that? It's a collective and individual effort. At your individual level, ever in an Azwafian Alaba or na Lasgide, it is your duty to represent the Igbo culture well. Ka ya bụ mmadụ fụga sị, hey, ụmụkwa onye Igbo mma n'ebe a dị otu a, and ọ naghị eme ihe ahụ unu na-eme this side, na ndị Igbo esi otu eme. We tell our story both by our expressions, our conduct, even our dressing. Sometimes in the yicha no full regalia given office. But when bossing yicha nwa akara m n'aka jewe n'ọfịs na island ebe m na-arụ ọrụ. Ndu ebe ahụ onye ọbụla sị, hey, nna onye nke a bụkwa ezigbo onye Igbo, onye ọbụla chọrọ ka mụ na ya see foto. That's me trying to, propagate and demonstrate my Igbo culture. Oge nọ na-aga n'ụzọ mbachari ma boat, achọghị m iji mbacha boat ndị tụọ na moto ya say, hey, onye ọ na-etu maasị. That's how I'm trying to propagate and demonstrate my Igbo history. Mana ụfọdụ ndị mmadụ ịjụ ha sị awụ m onye Igbo mana Igbo n'ọnụ. Ya ekwekwana onweghị ofu mkpụrụ no TV gbata ya na wardrobe ya. Emeghị mpame Igbo hangout ya ha bịa. A na-akpa nkata dị otu a ya ha bịa. Enweghị ihe ndị Igbo na-eme ya atụnye ọnụ. Mana akụọ ekwe na club sị na na-agba awantịrọ efi ebe a. So
hey, awantilo na your mate. Abeg, don't insult awantilo, please.
So what do I want them? So the summary of my talk is because at an individual level, let's try to push out the Igbo culture, put it out there, make it look good, tell our own story, and let's not allow people to tell our story for us. Onya ochikoto kuni na nneku. Daalụ kwano. Ịma na onye kpọọ ọba ya ọkpọkọrọ abata obi ewere egwu egwu. Daalụ.
Super. Thank you, Ifenna. The last part you talked about going to work with your attire. I like that. In the office then, they speak Igbo. We're only two Igbo guys in the office. The other Igbo people, they couldn't speak. Only two people could speak, me and the other guy, and we always spoke Igbo. Apparently, this is like a little story. Apparently, by the time I resigned, later on, the guy was telling me that all the Igbos we were speaking in the office offended someone. I didn't know this. I was just speaking and again, I don't care. It was later on he told me that, Omo, this Igbo way they speak for office, this person get issue with Amo. Come they talk, say, she be with all this speak Igbo for office. They felt like we were discussing about them. Whereas, now just talk. And like I said at the beginning, once I know you can speak Igbo, I ask you, can you speak? Yes. And we take it off from there. That's my own way of just pushing up my own culture. You did that with your clothes. That's fantastic. If it is your food, if you now your food, carry go. If na aniga, carry aniga go office. Chop your aniga. I mean, people they carry pasta chop. Pasta is not an Italian food. It's not even their own food. So take your own food to work. Nobody's going to kill you. Nobody's going to stop you. And then you said something about, please remind me, responsibility and something. I can't remember the other side. Ifenna.
Responsibility and fault.
Thank you. Good. Now, you can fault your guardians or your parents for, oh, you didn't teach me this, I didn't learn this. That's one thing. But you have your own responsibility. And I think at the end of all of these conversations we're going to have, whenever it ends, I think that is the thing everybody should go back with. Who is right, who is wrong? Your own responsibility. I know some people here that if they tweet 10 times a day, 8 now for Igbo. 8 is in Igbo. That's how they are doing their own. It can be in any way. If it's Igbo music you want to be talking about all the time, do it. People identify with culture in different ways. There are different ways you can go into your culture. It can start from music. It can start from food. Anyway, so that's your own responsibility towards your culture. Eloka already said it. You have the internet. If you're going to come out every day and say, oh, nobody taught me and everything, in 2025, when there's YouTube, in 2025, when there are accounts on Twitter that is dedicated to learning Igbo, then the fault is on you. If 5 years' time, for any reason, we have this kind of space, and then you come out and say, oh, nobody, I will blame you. I will point fingers at you. Because you can't use that as a reason in 2025 to say you're not learning. That's nonsense talk. Plain nonsense. Go and learn. Don't blame your parents anymore. Your parents had their reasons. We can keep blaming them today to tomorrow. That's fine. But you are at a certain age in your early 20s or middle 20s and you're still doing, we didn't speak Igbo in the house, so they didn't teach us. Go and learn. That's your own responsibility. Because looking at Nigeria, there's this thing they say, Nigeria has a way of reminding you where you're from. Nigeria will remind you. So if at that time they are reminding you where you're from and you don't even know where you're from, it's a problem. Yeah. So next is Chike. So Chike, over to you now. And then we have a lady finally. Ifenwa Global. GFE Global.
Good
After,
evening.
yeah. So Chike, over to you. Thank you.
Bye. Ekene
Ekene.
Okay, thank you. Dalo. So personally, I grew up in both worlds, Lagos and the East, and
Correct.
I spent it's Haponisha. Well, however, me personally, in my personal experience, while I was growing up, while I was still young and still maybe ignorant, I kind of had a personal condescension towards the East. Maybe towards the East, kind of have this personal condescension. Maybe it's maybe not developed, maybe it's slow, kind of stuff. Maybe there are no opportunities. But one thing my dad did for us, if I may offer, he made sure that in every opportunity we could return to the village, and not just returning. We also participated in whatever they were doing. So you go for it. So you could kind of also identify easily with your people and get involved in it. And another thing, I also spent a chunk of my schooling years also in the East, maybe close to a decade, and also in total, I could have spent maybe over a decade in the East, right? So it's easy for me to kind of navigate between both the Southwest and the Southeast. And also, as you also grow older, I think my epiphany also came as I think when I read a book, I think by Zima Debo or something about the Biafran War and all that, So you start understanding the realities of Nigeria as an Igbo man, and where you stand, because as you said, if you don't identify with your people, eventually a stranger is going to tell you where you come from, right? And so you start understanding the politics and the history, and also there are also some good handles on Twitter, where you can learn, right? Someone like Inayelugo, Chuka, the other guy from Equaria and all those kind of guys, even yourself, Anambra First Son, even though sometimes I also don't agree with you for some things that you say or do, but however, I'll give you your flowers for your deeds. So, but well, what I want to also ask a question is, so as a let's say as an impressionable young person who doesn't really know, who hasn't really come to that epiphany stage, maybe your dad didn't bring you home, and maybe you grew up in Lagos and all that, and you're living around a different culture. You're eventually you're going to get was it acculturated or whatever, and you're going to act like where you stay. When you wake up in the morning, you're not going to hear Isalachi. What you're going to hear is a Caro or something else, right? And you turn on your music and you turn on your streaming. It's Davido, Wizkid, and Burna Boy, and definitely they're not singing in Igbo, or maybe just some few lyrics and all that. So eventually you act like you get influenced, and you're probably maybe you're not you're still impressionable, or you don't really know what do you call it, a Chinese. The world depends on you for basically everything, from production to industry and all that. As a US, you know that if you get involved in maybe an issue in another country, or your country is going highest, they are going to do a prisoner swap, and they are going to get you back home and all that. So there is this sense of pride, national pride of being part of those countries. But the question I might want to ask, and I'm asking in all sincerity, what is the I don't want to say benefit, but what is the benefit of having this kind of identifying, wanting to identify? Let's say you don't know anything, your parents didn't bring you back, you didn't kind of, you're not exposed to the reality of the horror of Nigeria and what it is for an Igbo man. What is the benefit of identifying as an Igbo person, or wanting to identify as an Igbo person, and those kind of things? I feel personally we should be trying to push those kind of things, trying to create and bring this thing to the forelight, trying to make Igbo become mainstream, because that is also one of the ways that people can also become part of it and easily identify with it, right? People will not, people, like someone said, people act based on survival. Like people in the Delta, people in rivers, they are going to act based on survival. They are going to try to survive in based on what Nigeria is for them. Someone in Lagos who doesn't really know is just going to move with the flow. Someone in US will just be an Igbo person because it seems maybe he's on TikTok and he's seeing everybody showing their mansions, and it seems it's a good trend. He's not waking up and trying to defend himself that I'm Igbo. Nobody is antagonizing you for being Igbo in America. You're a black. Maybe they will antagonize you for being black and all that, but as an Igbo person, nobody. So my question is, what is the benefit of this sort of nationalistic, ethno-nationalistic identity and all those kind of stuff? So yeah, that's my question.
This question, I will throw it to Uche. Now Uche go answer, not these technicalities. Uche, over to you. Now night school I go, no vex.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay. So I heard you. I heard you very clearly. And the fact that you mentioned Chinese is very important. There's something that is going on. Let me use Chinese as an example. There is something that is going on between Chinese and the West. I don't know if you are aware,
Yeah.
where um, Chinese people migrate to the West to explore opportunities and probably gain access to education. The same thing with the Indians. And by the virtue of being Indians, being an Indian in America, or being a Chinese in America, um, there's already a stereotype attached to you, identity. Who moved to the West, maybe a Chinese, still, who moved to the West, maybe a Chinese, still loyal to the identity that is the Chinese, or the opportunities. When you talk about what are the benefits, the benefit is going to come from two ways. So there are two ways. Number one, as somebody that has been somehow opportuned, somehow opportuned to be part of this, come part of, because the truth is that nobody chose to be who they are today. It is by chance. But since you are here, so the question should be, what are you going to be bringing differently, so that you have an impression or a remarkable um, contribution to the humanity. And for me to paint a better picture, if you look at some of our Igbo leaders, many of them were born and raised in the north. All right, they were born and raised in the north, but they came back and made contribution. And for them to become Igbo leader, and also took up responsibility, they had to also identify as Igbo, who they are, and become Igbo themselves. Because there is a difference between just being Igbo by nomenclature and being Igbo by actions. So the benefits, as it stands now in Nigeria, of being an Igbo person, there are so many. Number one is you will have a lot of business opportunities, right? You will have a lot of business opportunity. Igbo people are in their millions, there are over 40 million Igbo people across the world. You'll be able to network and connect to that global market. The population of Ndi Igbo is beyond Nigeria. So that's number one. And a people that is filled with enterprising people, an enterprising population is also a very good advantage. So these are the advantages you are going to be looking at if you are looking at what you are likely going to explore from it. But I'm much more interested in what are you going to be bringing to Igbo Nation? What contribution, what area are you? Because Igbo Nation is like a motherland, right? And your mother has bettered you and given you everything, the good gene that you have acquired, the high IQ that you have acquired, the high industrial spirit that you have acquired. Now, it is left for you to bring those things into realization by using it to bring development, progress, and all manner of good things to the motherland. So that's what I'm going to say to you, my brother.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you very much for your feedback. But I want to play like the devil's advocate here. So I want to go maybe a bit political or geopolitical right now. So you probably must have heard of something like APAC, right? You've heard of APAC. Are you there?
What did you call it, please?
APAC, AIPAC.
No.
Okay, so APAC is like they're like a Jewish sort of
Okay. Okay. Okay.
yeah,
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
they're like a Jewish sort of group that kind of what do they call these people that try to push political interest, right? My question around that is there a sort of Igbo um, group, because we have Igbo group, we have World Igbo Forum or something, we have Ohanese, we have. Why I'm asking this question is that a lot of our Igbo brothers get into situations, tough situations, and it's almost that they are kind of left alone or they just have to, I'm not against
My brother.
identifying with.
My brother.
Yeah.
Let me respond. Let me respond.
No, wait, no,
Leadership
please,
has really.
let me finish my submission, please. So you have all the, please, apology.
Okay.
So I'm not against bringing your gift and bringing your talents and like this mega guy. I think I joined mega and the Anambra. So I'm not against that. I'm all about it. But I'm saying, what is the average Igbo guy that probably does not know anything and is still growing and trying to establish himself? What is the core benefit? Let's say tomorrow he gets into trouble, he tries to go out of the country and tries to hustle and he gets into trouble. Is there anything that the core Igbo group or whatever Igbo, what do you call it, Igbo union or Igbo group can actually do for him to get him out of that situation? Something like APAL. Okay, so like in Nigeria, our brothers get killed every other day. Is there a lobby group that can go to the US Senate and say these politicians has been killing our people and this politician has been killing our people? Please do not grant him this. Please do not give him visa. Please arrest him. Do this and take him to ICC. Those kind of things. That is what me I'm personally interested in. How can we build ourselves to be like those to have influence around the world and not just. And I know we have to start from somewhere, but I want to say, is there any pipeline, or is there any blueprint to even get to that position first of all? No, than just let's identify as Igbo. Let's post our mansions every Christmas and New Year and all those kind of things. And let's talk about how we are holding the
My
economy.
brother,
I want to see,
Lataba,
I want
Lataba,
to see, I
Lataba,
think,
Lataba. I get
Like,
what
it
you're
don't go
saying.
far.
Uche,
It don't go far.
Please allow me engaging. For
It
what you're
don't
trying
go
to say,
far.
yes. For what you're trying to say, yes, a lot has been in the pipeline already. A lot has been in the pipeline. Firstly, as an Igbo person outside Nigeria, let me say even in the US, you are most likely to be defended by your Igbo organization than the Nigerian government. I know countless cases. I know Igbo organizations who have been making impact because we have a whole lot of our brothers who are imprisoned in Asian prisons. Now, most of these people, they don't even have the popularity, they don't have the reach on social media and all of that, but they've been doing a whole lot. Even here on Twitter, I know what me, myself, and Harry tweets, Harry Chidi, I know what we have done behind the scene that will never make it to the timeline to make sure that this tribal bigotry on the timeline has reduced. I know what me personally have done. So in as much as you might not hear about these things, because one has to be discreet and apply wisdom, a lot is going on in the pipeline. So yes.
Okay.
I don't know if
Okay,
that answers your
okay.
question.
I
Hold on,
just wanted.
Chike. So I
yeah,
think
what you saying?
for this conversation, I think you can have this conversation with Mpa and Uche off here. I think they will definitely give you that audience. What do you think?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes. Let
Thank you.
me also say something. Let me say something. Imana, Obuni na Igbo. We have structure. Igbo people were structure everywhere I know. If we go to Lagos, for example, and we're communities, right? And we're community meeting, Uzukomuna, and we're gasili, Obuni active na your Uzukomuna, for example. There's no way you can have no answer. I get here with the problem to the table. We bring discuss. But that is beside. We used to have Igbo State Union, that was founded by the likes of the Zik and Mbadiwe and the rest. The Nigerian state fully as something very threatening as a result of how effective and impactful the organization was to Ndibo. We what as that when I now managing count. Mana beyond the Hanese enwelu so many social political organizations. Obo na enwelu nke no ya. Before that na enwelu ifefa na alu. Some of them are springing up right now. For example, in America, there is a group in America that's look after Ndi Igbo in America, and they have a union. There is also one in UK. So all those things are very important. Ijeneshi and Debaing were meeting. The other time I saw a video of Imo State in South Africa electing their leader that went viral, and the Ronu rascals capitalized on it. The reason why they are having that such gathering is to elect a leader that will oversee their activities. Same way that's communal and identification within that sub level. But at the national level, at the upper level, that's where we usually have the issue. And if any course came where I believe also because of Nigerian politics. But I can tell you, as it stands now, there are a lot of them. All you need to do is to be part of it or be aware of it. Or at least when I be no. So I can tell you, there is this one established by the late Ifeanyi Uba, the Igbo Love Themselves. I'm a member of the group, and I know a lot of things that group has done. So there are so many of them. If you are paying attention, you malo ebe so, and this group they have invested millions of naira, if not dollars, in doing so many things. So I'll be finding out on social media. So there are so many benefits of identifying and being part of, because what you know numbaki ya mana in the man. Kedi for jabu politicians age defa fayiri they be the Iwak and their ethnic nationality, all because they want identification. They want to be ndega equity telephone. If politician can do that, imagine ordinary person. So when you are part of that social organization, trust me, there are so many people who are going to stand up for you. I'm also part of
Uche,
a lot of.
Uche, please round up. Yeah. Hello.
So
Uche.
the point is that so I'm done actually. I'm just trying to
Okay.
let
Okay.
you know that
Okay.
you need to be
Okay.
part of
Thank you.
what is going on.
Okay. Thank you. So Chike, so you can reach out to Mpa and Uche separately, and I'm very, very, very sure they would give you that audience. Yeah. So before we continue, you guys can see the tweet I shared at the top. When one of our sister name international and domestic flight booking. Because our businessmen may travel. Ma ụmụ nwoke na-eship ụmụ nwanyị ma ụmụ nwanyị na-eship ụmụ nwoke for various activities. Because you have Dimma. Ọ na-enyekwa discount. Dimma ọkwa ị na-enye discount. So you need discount. So you book your flight with Dimma. As we are having these conversations, make we also patronize our people. So ndị na-eme international movement ma domestic. In a book kwa GUO flight. Please include that in your bookings. We need most of all of this to go well. So next in line, Bu Ifenwa Global. The floor is yours. I think you will be the second lady to speak here after Masi. I think second or third. So yeah, the floor is yours now. Chike, I'll be moving you down, and then after her it will be Chisom, and then we have Marvel Chidi as will be the next person. Thank you. So Ifenwa, over to you. If you're not here, be like if you know the while we wait for her, Chisom, I think it falls to you, the process king. So maybe when she comes back in after you're done, she picks up the mic. So Chisom, are you here? Now wow. Oh, network MTN name her. Chisom no day. If anyone no day.
Una na-enwe ezigbote netwọk na Canada.
Allow me,
Bon,
please.
unu nọ n'oyi.
Oh, 7G. Oh, 7G. 7G. You know, we don't move away from 5G, sef. Well, can you na use kita 7G na wetin you use enter power. So Chisom, Ifenwa is not here, Chisom is not here. So Marvel, the floor is yours. Yeah, let's see can they happen.
Hi, Marvel. Can you hear us? The floor is yours. You can go ahead, please.
Nah, no understand.
Marvel, you have the floor.
Okay, I'm trying to add ordinary girl, and then ordinary girl. Can you hear us?
I can hear you.
Thank you very much. The floor is yours, and then after you, it will be Okeke Onyeka Benedict, Udegbe Dinso, and then Martins Dike. Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Thank you. So, first of all, I have two things to say. I will start with a really short one. First of all, I want to ask. Okay, let me just go this way. So, thanks to everybody that's putting out more education about Igbo to the people on the timeline. For example, me, I'm learning about Igbo culture from the timeline because I would not randomly just go and browse, but by seeing them on the timeline every time, I'm learning, especially deeper things from these small tribes, like all those different dialects and tribes that are existing within the Igbo ethnicity. I'm happy to learn. So I would encourage that they put out more of that. For example, like some of us who learned Igbo from our parents speaking to us who did not really grow in Igbo land and stuff. So all these things are like a very rude awakening for me. And I think there are people like me out there on the timeline that are happy to learn. There is the importance of sticking to your culture cannot be overemphasized. For example, I feel so terrible when I come online and those people are always attacking us for trying to copy them, copy their culture. They say you are wearing their clothes to your own wedding. Don't you have traditional clothes? It's embarrassing. Tribes aside, if a friend tells me that hey babe, you know get your own, why they wear my own, I will be embarrassed. So everybody should be embarrassed. But I'm beginning to see more beautiful clothes from the Igbo people because it started looking like Igbos do not have their own kind of clothes or what. I started seeing Stan Nze and the rest making really nice, creative. If what our parents of old used to wear that made it look like the Igbo attire is just plain, it's just there. We can get creative. Recently I saw someone trying to educate another person who called an Igbo attire called telling them that is this not too rapper. I don't know if it was Uche or I don't know, but the person was telling them, is it not Igbos that used to tie, make our stuff a hybrid form, modernize it, make it look great. I love a parade of the Igbo attires when I see them. I think we can do something like that. I follow some of the Igbo handles online and I see lots and lots of Igbo foods they put on the list. We can do all of that. It's beautiful. Celebrate our Igbo heroes. Let us know. Push them on our faces. I love what Alex is doing, especially the story about PNO KK. All these things, they may have just 30 likes, 20 likes, but trust me, there are people that may not click the like button, but it's making impact in their lives, if you get my point. So when people do wedding, they say ashebi, everybody is wearing ashebi. But then that ashebi, is it not a Yoruba word? I'm thinking about it. I don't know. I may be wrong, but isn't Ashebi? Ashebi not be Yoruba word. Do we not have like an Igbo equivalent of you buying clothes from your a person that is marrying to wear together? I don't know, like that's something I really don't know how to, you understand. So don't we have, so when we want to buy, it's just like calling, instead of you to table man, instead of you udara, you end of your life agbalumo. It's agbalumo your language. So I think I find the equivalent. Look as though it's a global word. I should be. I bet tell us our own. Some of us we don't know it. Understand? Let our words be so popular that they get into the English lexicon, so into English dictionary. I saw some weeks back an Igbo guy, was able to push for some Nigerian lingua to get into the dictionary, the English dictionary. And the words I say are all Yoruba words. Inferiority complex, just talk to me about it. Is it that we don't have, but we have amazing words that everybody uses, like Odogu. I didn't see Odogu getting. Odogu has become mainstream and commonplace enough to get to the dictionary. So how did you do that and come back and everything is, then did they beat you? Did somebody force you not to put? I don't get it. Please, let's be pushing for our own identity and make it look sweet, sparkling, great and everything. Okay, so that's the first thing I want to point out. The second thing I want to point out is that I've had conversations with young people of this generation that say they are moving away from giving their children names affiliated with their tribes. I've heard from other tribes too. Okay, but then I am particular about Igbo. Nothing concern me with other tribes like that. Like that. Let me just say where my own shoe hurts. So I've heard from Igbo saying they don't want Igbo names to cause their children to suffer automatic discrimination even before they get the chance to prove their worth or value or anything. For example, when you apply for a job in a country where bigotry has been deadly institutionalized, like a crazy person can just cancel out your file even before they look at it. Maybe nobody sent them, but because mad people are just everywhere. So let me give an example. I don't like doing personal examples on Twitter because Twitter is a crazy place. Anything you say, they start using it to test your generation. But let me just give this example. So there was one time wanted to register with NILS, which is the National Institute of Legislative Studies. And when I reached out to the contact number, and they asked me to send my details. After I sent my details to the contact person on WhatsApp, Oga said there is no vacant space. What is full, blah blah blah. But I don't know. But me, I kept engaging politely. I didn't want to give up because I wanted to do that. I kept engaging and engaging. And then I craftily mentioned where I'm from without being asked. You understand? I suspected something, but I was not sure. I suspected that my name could have victimized me, but I didn't want to conclude that. Let me just, whatever my heart is telling me, let me give it a try. So I just mentioned my state because my state is actually one of those states that claim not to be Igbos, but their name is screaming Igbo, you understand? So you cannot dodge this thing so much. There is no matter how you try to, you just cannot dodge it. So when I mentioned my place indirectly, he then asked me, he said, where in that state are you from? And I explained a little like a professional so that he will be convinced, my darling. He told me that the heart is open, and he told me the steps to follow and get ready. So I don't know what happens there. I don't know, I may be wrong, but what happened there? So, but this takes me back to the point I was trying to make. So, how can we begin to make our names not to be a point of discrimination? I do not subscribe with anybody away from tribal names. I do not. But how do we, our names not to be a point of discrimination? It's a question we provide us. So, this is what I personally feel, because I have my own thoughts, because I've thought about it though, but I want to hear like a broader perspective. So we cannot just continue. For me, we cannot just continue to dodge being Igbo. I mean, I could possibly dodge if I wanted to, because my state is not exactly, and those people that we always tell you they are not Igbos because they are hiding inside one other state outside the 5 eastern states, right? So we cannot continue to dodge, because no matter how you dodge, like that guy said, Nigeria will remind you, will find a way to remind you. And for example, like my status, like I mentioned, and what happened with news, and even if your name, even if you say because you don't want your name to victimize you, then you don't answer your Igbo name, then okay. What's your so just something, even your intonation. As a matter of fact, to the people in Nigeria, once you are not Yoruba, you are not Hausa. Even if you are Kwaibom, you know you are Igbo. Talk less of when there is actually something Igbo about you. Understand? You're just something. So even if you are Imo and then you say you will not give your children Igbo name, you will write Imo State in the certificate. Abi, who can give you? How do you want to do it? So we cannot encourage anybody running away from our identity. As a matter of fact, we have more strength if many of us take up our Igbo names even more. Let's be in everybody's faces. Let them know that is it that you want to gather yourself and discriminate a whole race of people because we are coming in crowd and we are all having that same identity. So even our names, sometimes you go to a place, let's just say you go to a police station and you are wearing Ishiako, and then your head can be telling you that policeman will say you are at fault, even when before this story, maybe because he's bigoted and he's a closeted bigot or something like that. Yeah, so my question is, how do we build strength and value, a sense of resistance around our identity, so that people cannot just turn us down, just because of our tribe, like what's happening in the time. And I'm telling you, because of this pushback has back on, if we erase our identity, sorry, we are from. And it's okay to have English name. It's really beautiful. But the challenge is, let it be that you are just happy to give your kids English name, not because you are deliberately sworn to avoid whatever points you out as Igbo. I'm happy to identify, but the big question is, what can we do different to ensure the Igbo man is not discriminated even in his absence just because of his identifiers? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. There's something you said towards the end, saying, where you said, you're pushing back now, so your children would not push back this much. That's a very nice statement, because if we had the people before us do all of this, maybe we won't be doing most of this. So it's on us. I think Eluka said that, and Uche. We need to do it now. If we don't do it, we need to do it now.
What happened?
So yeah, so she made some points and also asked some questions regarding why we tend to leave out Igbo names and focus on English names, and like in terms of identity, we tend to have left all of that, and then most of what we're doing now, we kind of like borrow identity, and she used the names as example and why it's so and why it's not different. Why are we not going the route of identifying with your own name and your own culture? And then she also used food, for example, I think she used agbaluma. When you're supposed to say udara, you're saying agbaluma. No, I don't know if you want to speak to that.
Yeah,
So I
I
left
mean,
that exactly.
where do I even start from? It's the okay. I mean, I think she already answered the question she's asking us, because it was something she said about she's pushing back this much so her children, won't have to do the same. Everything you've seen happening around you, the ripple effect of the war from the 60s, the genocide actually, from 1960. So I mean, I don't like saying we lost the war, but then the war ended. It didn't end the way we would have wanted, and of course, there's always going to be that segregation that comes with people like us. So it's something our parents didn't focus on surviving actually after the war. So they didn't really pay attention to all these things, all this information war and all stuff like that. Our parents didn't really pay attention to it. They were just focused on trying to survive. So things got worse. People in Lagos, um, in a different part of the country, so they just needed to survive. So, but slowly and gradually, our people are beginning to catch up, realize we're not focused on surviving anymore. So we're beginning to catch up. So it's going to take a process. It's not something that's going to happen overnight. You know, like personally, I don't have an English name anymore. I used to have an English name, but I've took that out of my name. So how of course started from Twitter and everything that I've been doing. So it's something that's going to take a while. Will my kids have an English name? No, just going to be Igbo names. That's all. With the kids after them, it's something. It's a gradual process. So it's not something you wake up one morning and you see people. It's people no longer calling Odara Agbalumo. It's gonna take a while. So yeah, but then consistency. The more we preach this message, the more we push out this narrative, the more we keep having these conversations, the more people wake up, the more people realize that, oh, okay, this is what happened, this is what I need to do, and this is what I need to do for my. I mean, you've already reached that realization for you to have said you're doing all this so that your kids don't have to. I mean, you've answered everything. So that's the whole essence of everything we are doing. So I don't know if that makes sense.
Thank you.
Let me add something, just small little thing to what Afam said. Ordinary girl, thank you so much. We yearn for young women like you to always be part of this conversation. Um, but I hope you are following her. And she made a lot of points, very important points. Somebody posted Igbo young two ladies on the timeline, and the same suspects invaded and started saying a manner of things. There's a question that I'm putting out today, and I've been repeating that question. And so I want everybody to keep putting out this question. You said you invented these things. You invented whatever you claim, the clothes, the shoes, um, the bags, and what have you. Why is it that today, 2025, there is no place in your place where one can go to go get these things you invented? Because greatness can never be raised. If your ancestors were great, if your ancestors were lion, and today, and they were able to invent things, they were inventors, they were brilliant, they were superhumans and what have you, and they gave birth to you, and you become a rat that you can no longer produce, then there's something fundamentally wrong along the story. So if, for example, you mention Abba, Abba is known for crafts. They produce a lot of things, the wares, the shoes, the bags, and it has always been there even before the colonial masters. If you want to buy gun, not conventional gun, the foreign guns, if you want local guns, they are going to tell you to go to Oka
Oka made
because
one pa.
they had blacksmiths who used to make guns. There were so many places in Igbo land that have unique gifts they were into, and they were doing very well. Our women were known to wear two wrappers. Because there is greatness that the ancestors of the people in your place. There has to be. If your ancestors were good at producing machine, I should be able to come to your place and see relics of machine. At least somebody in your family or somebody in your community should be able to retain that inheritance of greatness. But when you don't have that, there's nothing to argue. So keep asking them that question: where can we get this today? So that solves the problem. Our young women are beginning to learn, some of them, because I see so many things they are posting on social media. The Igbo traditional wedding, look at the one that is happening. Igbo traditional wedding is becoming very spiced up. They see the attire, they claim, they call it, they say it is their culture that is being appropriated. And the problem is actually the Lagos factor. The Lagos factor is the problem because everybody in Lagos accept to call it particular language that is within the location. It now makes it look like it is theirs. It is not true. Because if you go to the East, they have a pattern, they have their own way of doing things. And it's lack of that travel and lack of that, storytelling from our own end has caused all this problem. Because if we've been telling people this is a chaff, this is Uma Bogo, Akuma Bogo, not Ashobi. This is Akumada, this is Aqua and Dinka. So we have a name for it. If we have been very emphatic in pointing out these things, emphatic about pushing the way we do things, but we try to fit in. We try to fit in so that we all can become one. And that oneness we became in Lagos has somehow rubbed off everybody. So if somebody who is in Lagos, a Lagos girl, comes down to East, he will tell them this is called Gele instead of Ichaf. They will say, okay, it's Gele then. And you say these people that wear clothes, decent clothes, are called Ashebi instead of Umabo. Then we accept it. That type of thing. And this is something that has somehow eroded the culture that used to be distinct. But the truth is that today, unfortunately, due to what is happening, is going to be restored. Trust me, I know how our people think. Our people behave almost similar type of way. Once we become upon this journey, it's going to be an overkill, and our people are going to overdo it until the tail end, and they're never going to get tired. So don't worry, your children are not going to partake in this. They're going to enjoy. Our fathers tried their best. I tell people that our fathers, I don't always push the blame because these people witnessed to war. They still have the impact of the war on them. So the survival syndrome, the PTSDs and everything they lived with, coupled with the discrimination they faced, hampered a lot of things. And today we do not have all of those things to contend with. So we are more like freeborn and we can explore. We have all the ways, all the means to explore to the greatness. So thank you so much once again. I would like to hear from you. I followed you, on Spaces because I like your insight. Ogechi, back to you.
Ogechuku, please. Ogechuku. Akpanam Ogechi.
You are no Gechi.
Ogechuku, please. Anyways, so
Ogechi, come
Kama.
yeah. So towards the end of what you said, in terms of how people say based on their environment, I think another problem is